Everyone realizes that it's about setting off to sail single-handed around the world. That's what makes the race so popular. The Vendée Globe's course is what makes it legendary. The hallmark of this race is that it's so long, and the conditions are so unpredictable.
It's crazy. It's snowing.
The Vendée Globe is special in that it's more than just sport. It's not just a race, it's also one heck of an adventure. Shit happens every day. You have to deal with it, because there'll be more tomorrow. Wonderful! The winner of this 10th Vendée Globe will be the one who wants to win most, and whoever will push their limits the furthest.
In late October 2024, 40 of the best offshore racers sailed into Les Sables d'Olonne and moored in Portelona, 3 weeks before the start of the 10th Vendée Globe. 40 skippers, 26 from France, 14 from 11 other nations, 34 men, 6 women, aged 23 to 65, including 2 with disabilities, all preparing for a non-stop solo round-the-world adventure without assistance on a 60-foot Immoka. The greatest yacht race, the ultimate challenge, a skipper, a boat and the ocean. After the frustrations of 2020 locked down by the global pandemic, crowds flocked once again to this great popular celebration to hail the sailors.
We could sense how eager the skippers were to be here and to meet the public. The race village had to live up to this big event, the Everest of the seas, the world's greatest race.
3 weeks of festivities during which almost 1.3 million happy visitors proceeded along the pontoons, bathed in autumn sunshine and immersed themselves in the world of ocean racing. Thousands of youngsters took part in the many activities, adding an extra dimension to the Vendée Globe Junior learning kits used in hundreds of schools in France and elsewhere. The entertaining, informative, positive initiative area highlighted the social and environmental commitments of various partners, associations and sponsors. 30 environmental, social or humanitarian causes are supported and promoted by the Vendée Globe skippers.
We're going to be alone for 3 months, so I'm enjoying being with the people here.
It's great to see real people and not just a number of clicks or likes.
The race village and its hospitality areas provide an ideal setting to meet leaders from local and national business communities. The 10th Vendée Globe joined forces with UNESCO to accelerate ocean protection and broaden our understanding of the seas, the domain of sailors. 25 of them took beacons, buoys, floats and weather stations aboard, which will collect essential data for scientists, particularly in remote areas of the globe, to improve the world's understanding of the climate and the ocean, as well as weather forecasts. All the boats competing in the Vendée Globe are 60-foot monohulls. 16 of the 40 are fitted only with dagger boards. They're therefore slower than foilers that are capable of lifting up out of the water and sailing faster thanks to their large appendages. The Vendée Globe course has remained unchanged since 1989. It starts and finishes at Les Sables d'Olonne with no other stops en route. There are 2 biodiversity protection zones around the Azores and Cape Verde, areas identified as migration and breeding grounds for large cetaceans and other marine mammals. Over 24,000 nautical miles via the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa, Cape Leeuwin in Australia and Cape Horn at the tip of South America. Around Antarctica with a no-go zone to keep the boats away from icebergs. The record time for the Vendée Globe course, 74 days and 3 hours, was set by Armel Leclerc in 2016. The 10th Vendée Globe was an adventure and a fierce round-the-world race. Never before had such a strong lineup of elite competitors raced on boats offering such performance and reliability. With many favourites and even more outsiders capable of claiming victory, this would be a thrilling and unpredictable edition. And so on Sunday morning, the 10th of November, the 40 sailors left land behind.
What a crazy day. I'd had a taste of it in 2016, so I kind of knew what to expect. But even if you've already done it and you know how the first day will go, you're never quite properly ready for it.
It's been my dream to be here, and it's just so special. It blows me away. It's really a very special moment.
The emotion has to come out. We are human after all.
A very heavy in emotion for sure, and it's difficult to say goodbye, but I felt like I'd prepared myself for it well enough that it didn't impact me negatively.
It wasn't a day of separation for me. It was a day of celebration. I set off with a smile on my face. First out, first in. It was hard for me emotionally until I got onto the boat at the pontoon. Once aboard though, I was fine.
I didn't want to cry. I'd been waiting to compete in this race for so long, so I tried to keep a lid on my emotions so I didn't upset my loved ones.
When I'm on the start line, it'll help me knowing you're all here together to celebrate. It'll give me a great buzz. I love you all. I'm off to do what I love the most after my family, and that's sailing.
There were so many people on the way down the channel. This is a moment I've been dreaming of for years, and I was there at last. It's so crazy.
I think it's hard to experience that in other sports or events. It's probably down to the length of this race.
At 2 minutes past 1, the president of the Vendée Globe unleashed the fleet.
1, go!
Top départ, Vendée Globe 2024.
This is day 1 of the Vendée Globe! Here we go!
Now we are officially along.
And we're off for 3 months.
The only missing ingredient was wind. The world's toughest yacht race got underway at a snail's pace.
No wind, and then a fair wind gradually picked up, with fine weather. You can't dream of anything better. It's probably better than setting off in 25 knots of wind with a swell. Other boats can be out there to see us off. We can gradually get into the swing of things and settle in on board. It helped calm everyone down because there were boats hanging around, following us, and then it was like, so long, we're not going to stay around all night.
A quick look at the fleet on this first night with Charlie Dalin already going very fast.
It was a night spent in search of the elusive breeze. Charlie Dalin was quickest on each tack in the moderate wind. He topped the morning rankings ahead of Sébastien Simon and Sam Goodchild.
The flow was clearly in my favour. When I jibed, the wind changed exactly when I expected. I was comfortable with my boat. I reached good speed from the off. I was in tune with the weather, and as a result, I was first to Cape Finisterre.
I'm sailing alongside Eric Bellion. We're still all tightly grouped together, crossing quite often.
The sea's still quite flat, and there'll soon be a change of direction, though, to head towards Cape Finisterre. It's pretty fearsome. That's where the strong winds await. This is called bearing away. It's only going to strengthen. It's already up to 30 knots, so I'm going to reef again.
At last, the sailors got down to some serious business as a storm brewed off Cape Finisterre.
I played it much safer than the rest of the fleet. I dropped down the rankings, of course, but a few days later I found out that many skippers had broken things, so I told myself that I was right to play safe at the beginning.
What a bloody mess.
It was more serious for the Chinese sailor Jing Kunju, who sprained his ankle. Maxime Sorel also injured his ankle. Struggling to reef his mainsail, he climbed onto the boom and fell when a wave struck.
We spent so much time getting ready, and we've got problems like this already. Shit! Sorry, guys. No need to be sorry.
Although Sorel's technical issues could potentially be fixed, his increasingly sore ankle forced him to retire in Madeira just 5 days into the race. Once the gale abated, the skippers looked for the best way to navigate a North Atlantic that promised slow progress between the Canaries and Cape Verde. Making the most of the wind shifts, Sam Goodchild took the lead.
So I knew that it doesn't mean anything and the race is 3 months long, and yeah, it's great. I was obviously proud because as leading the Vendée Globe fleet, it's not something you get an opportunity to do very often. A cherry on the cake, which was unexpected.
Oops. It was interesting. We started to see strategies come into play. Nicholas Lunven opted to go north, and it paid off.
Lunven sailed much further west after rounding Cape Finisterre. Once he began to head south, the Holcim PRB skipper found extremely favourable trim and wind angles. Ideal conditions to set a new 24-hour distance record.
I learnt earlier that I'd beaten the 24-hour distance record. 546.6 miles.
All 39 sailors sought the right wind corridor to descend towards Madeira. Almost the entire fleet was still very closely bunched.
Everybody going this way and seeing Jean and now finally me going this way. Well, that's scary. Also, Jean Le Cam has gone this way, and I'm not by myself, and he's got a similar boat, and he's got lots of experience in weather routing too, so I'm not the only one making a mistake.
I did my routing, and there was this option that left Cape Verde to starboard. That's when I found myself leading the race for I don't know how long.
Some groups headed east, others west. For me, it quickly became clear that I needed to go west because conditions were really going to slacken to the east, and it was risky staying over there, even if the boats were high in the rankings as they were nearer to Cape Town.
The overall weather situation was quite abnormal. The trade winds that usually blow at this latitude were absent, forcing very slow progress on the competitors.
It's dead calm, but as we're all in the same boat, there's no pressure.
The leading group slowed right down, causing the pack to bunch up. Just 60 miles separated the top 15. Maximising the slightest breeze required constant attention to make headway.
It's wonderful for me at the moment. I'm surfing on a bank of clouds. There's wind beneath it. I'm reaching the end of the cloud now. That's it. I think I just about exhausted that one.
Changing sails, balancing the weight on board, every detail counted in the quest for progress. The temperature rose, the wind dropped, and the sea smoothed.
First shower with seawater, of course, but I've rinsed off with a tiny bit of fresh water, nice and clean.
The 3 R's, rest, recovery and repairs, were the order of the day.
I've been up here for an hour, changing the anemometer, but I've finished.
Each of the favourites had flexed their muscles in turn, not always choosing the easy option, but now time stood still.
I felt that I needed to be over to the west and tried to position myself for that and create a little gap, but ultimately it didn't work out too badly. We had the top 2 spots with Sam at that time.
It's my birthday and we're leading the Vendée Globe, so it's a good birthday. Happy birthday, ciao!
We're manoeuvring hard on Bureau Valet. Game on. Can you see Yoann over there? We hit a squall at 35 knots in the pitch dark, and Louis Burton suffered damage nearby. I don't believe it. There was a crack, and 5 minutes later, 2 more. The speed was fine and everything compared to the new boats. Damn it!
Burton spotted large cracks in the hull near the jockey pole and undertook an impressive repair job whilst at sea. The leaders sailed towards the equator with the 2 vulnerables out in front. Further east, after skirting the African coast, Jean Le Cam and Conrad Coleman moved back towards the middle of the fleet. Everyone looked for the best way through the erratic winds approaching the doldrums.
I'm sailing the best I can in these slack, rainy conditions.
It's 3 a.m. We're under a dark, black cloud. I really felt I was about to run into a wall. I was afraid of being hit by 40 knots right at the start. And finally, I had no wind at all. You get the impression you're entering a parallel world.
Ah, you saw that one. I managed to get out of the doldrums with a lead of 50 or 60 miles and be the first to cross the equator. Reaching the South Atlantic in a strong position was crucial for me. I was really afraid of losing touch with Sam and Thomas. When you see the scenario, and you know the boats, you wonder if they're not going to get away. 2 of our rivals have sneaked off ahead, but I hope the wind is going to pick up again, because there's a bit less than forecast right now. A little breeze lifted and I began to get a good feeling for the boat and the wind again. I thought that if I jibed, I'd get even more wind and go even faster. I did, and as if by magic, the wind strengthened. Charlie came back hard. He left the pack he was in and he was right on my tail.
As soon as they caught the southern trade winds, the leading foilers finally showed what they were made of. From Charlie Dalin to Justin Metro, the sprint was on to catch a low-pressure area building off the Brazilian coast that could drive them all the way to the Cape of Good Hope.
We're off again. We found the wind. Awesome. 27, 28, 29, 30 knots. Ooh. We're back to normal speeds for our boat. It doesn't take much to get her up there to 25 knots. She's soon flying.
After 10 days of racing, the fleet stretched out considerably within the space of a few hours. The slower daggerboard boats were dropped for good.
They were off. Whoosh! And we were left. At times we were doing 4 knots and they were hitting 23. That doesn't take long to add up.
And yet it was a close race in this group of daggerboard boats, with Jean Le Cam to the east and Louis Duc to the west, each hoping he was right. They were over 500 miles off the lead at the equator. The top 19 boats, all foilers, flew diagonally across the ocean. The goal was to surf on the low as long as possible and hurtle towards South Africa.
It's all about finding that happy medium, really, between not breaking anything and not letting the others get too far ahead. The boat's moving incredibly well. She's flying towards the Indian Ocean. Those 3 days were really tough, in actual fact. The conditions were incredible, but with these boats that go faster and faster, when you're bombing along at 30 knots, the average noise level was over 90 decibels. It's deafening. I had earplugs in all the time. You're constantly jolted. The boat takes off, lands, crashes, and it falls. To foil, you've just got to hang on like a monkey in a tree. Always keep that grip nice and tight. In these conditions, the day's task is to go to the toilet and balance on the bucket. Can't even stand up in the boat without holding firmly on. I've got my heavy-duty helmet on because we're getting roughed up a bit. Life on board is a bit tough in these conditions. So, yes, your brain aches. You're totally tensed up. When you eat, you get it all over you. You hang in because the race might depend on that front. They told me I'd beaten the record once, twice, 3 times, so you get into kind of a state of euphoria.
The record was beaten again and again. Ultimately, Sébastien Simon was fastest, covering 615 nautical miles in 24 hours at an average speed of 25 knots. Following the leading quartet, the chasing pack tried to keep up with the infernal pace. Lundven, Goodchild, Bestaven, Meyer and Bayou dropped over 100 miles behind in a sea roughened by the low.
The little area of low pressure that propelled us across the South Atlantic was quite challenging. It's moving south of us now, and we're trying to stay on the heels of that group of 4 ahead.
Boris Herman was the only one of the pre-race favourites to sail mid-fleet. He'd been in this situation since the North Atlantic and was struggling to bridge the gap. The German sailor was part of a third group with Clarisse Creme, Sam Davis and Justine Metro, who were no longer in the same weather system as the leaders, 1,000 miles ahead.
Unfortunately, we missed the train a little bit. I wasn't far off Paul Marhat, but a week later he was 500 or 600 miles ahead. I just told myself that's how the cookie crumbled. The gaps had opened up and I had to do better with the conditions I had at that point.
Despite valiant attempts to remain in touch, the older generation of foilers had been left behind in the mad dash south. The skippers all realised that the race had got away.
Psychologically, this bit is pretty painful. Kind of watching the boats ahead sail away and the boats behind catch up.
It's been like that for a week now. It's faster for the leaders. It's like life. The rich get richer, and the poor get poorer.
The proximity of the boats created races within the race, as all the skippers tried to get ahead of the Santa Helena high-pressure system.
An unbelievable view this morning. Look who's outside. That's Benjamin's boat, real close.
In 34th place on the 1st of December, Manuel Cousin was stopped in his tracks by an unidentified floating object or an animal.
It really frightened me because it made a loud bang. I was sent flying and hurt my nose, my arm and my ribs. Honestly, I thought my race had ended there and then. It hit the bow for sure. It doesn't seem to be too bad, so I've decided to carry on.
Backmarker Jabi Wuresh was a long way behind when a shroud, the cable that supports the mast, broke in the South Atlantic. The Hungarian skipper retired before entering the Indian Ocean. In these remote waters with little freight traffic, the skippers launched the Argo floats, given to them by Ifremer scientists. These floats collect data to improve our knowledge of these wild ocean environments. An intense week of racing ended with just 4 contesting the lead. Charlie Dalin, Yoann Richomme, Sébastien Simon and Thomas Rouillon had broken away and rounded the first cape of their round-the-world race.
32 knots. Crazy speeds. I felt like I'd been teleported from the equator to the Cape of Good Hope. It passed by so quickly. I've little recollection of that whole section. The South Atlantic was fabulous. 3, 2, 1. That's it. I've rounded the Cape of Good Hope. Next step, the Indian Ocean. Let the battle continue.
After 19 days at sea and a descent of the South Atlantic at breakneck speed, just 3 hours and 18 minutes separated the first 4 boats at the Cape of Good Hope.
Cape of Good Hope marks the first left turn, so you have to be well placed to enter the Southern Ocean. The gaps open up at that point, and that's very often where the race is won and lost. Well, if it isn't that rascal, Yoann Richomme. Charlie Dalin, just there. It's always a good sign to be with him. He generally goes the right way. This is what I'm worried about this morning. A huge area of low pressure was deepening all the time and about to hit the front of the fleet. It was a big decision to make. It was torture. I spent 36 hours thinking about it. Do I stay or do I go? At that point, I was already positioned quite far south. I didn't feel like I had a choice of going north or south, unlike Yoann. You either go south of the low where the sea isn't as rough, but if it shifts, it can cost you dearly. I didn't fancy it. I saw the thing deepening and I was certain that I'd be hit by it and pay for it dearly. When I say cost you dearly, I don't mean breaking a jib sheet. I mean dearly in the sense that you might never be seen again.
Charlie Dalin and Sébastien Simon made the most of the wind from the building low pressure system, maintaining an eastward course to stay ahead of the system for as long as possible. The aim was to make good speed, regardless of the sea state. It was risky, but if successful, they'd build a huge advantage.
I felt like I was sailing on a knife edge. There was no room for mistakes. I had to maintain my speed day and night, no matter what. I couldn't afford to slow down, because if I got caught by the low, I'd have over 100 kilometers of wind with 10, 11 meter seas. Charlie and I were ahead, far to the south, while the others headed north. But the Earth is round, so the further north you go, the longer the route. Generally happier further south. Charlie and I were making 20, 25 knots, while the others were already enduring rough seas. I realized I'd missed something, so when I headed north and saw them, it dawned on me they were going to gain 500 miles.
While the chasers sailed north to allow the worst of the storm to pass, Charlie Dalin pushed his boat to the limit for 3 relentless days, fighting to stay ahead of the massive low. He succeeded, Sébastien Simon did not.
I didn't want to damage the boat, so I slowed down a bit, but then the front overtook me, and it hit me. What a mistake! I should have kept pushing with Charlie, who never actually faced the low. I left the low system exhausted, but really thrilled to have made it through.
With Charlie Dalin's breakaway and most of the skippers in the Indian Ocean, the Vendée Globe now entered a new phase, the Southern Ocean. Between the lows and the Agulhas current off Africa, sailing was grueling in high-cross seas.
The day I rounded the Cape of Good Hope was incredibly tough, one of the hardest, with short, choppy 6-metre waves and the boat slamming hard. I thought, if this was what the Southern Ocean is like, it's going to be awful.
Wow. Waves are coming in every direction. It's like a giant cauldron. I hit the ceiling in my bunk. I've just broken 3 battens in an accidental jibe in the low. I'm so annoyed. Bloody hell.
On the 4th of December, Louis Burton retired from the race due to further damage. His rigging hardware failed, forcing him to retire and ending his 3rd Vendée Globe in Cape Town. Sébastien Simon had a big scare in the Indian Ocean as he skirted the ice zone, sailing up towards Australia in 2nd position, more than 200 miles behind Charlie Dalin.
I woke up with the boat on its side. I looked leeward and knew something was missing. I realised then that the foil had broken. And that's the way it is. I admit, it's hard to take in. I don't really like talking about it. That's it. I'm first round Cape Lewin.
Cap Lewin, franchi, en tête.
After 29 days at sea, Charlie Dalin rounded his 2nd Cape in the lead, with Sébastien Simon continuing his race 11 hours behind, and Yoann Richomme in 3rd place, a day behind Dalin. The race got even tougher in the Indian Ocean.
There are lots of storms here. Tonight, the wind will increase again to over 40 knots. Don't worry, storms are our bread and butter. You don't feel particularly welcome here. You kind of get the impression of having to tiptoe through so you don't disturb the sea and the waves and the wind. A length of track ripped off. Don't know how I'm going to fix that. It's not just me. All the boats are facing problems, but they repair and get back into the race. You need to be resilient to finish the Vendée Globe.
On the 15th of December, Pip Hare dismasted 800 miles south of Australia. She'd been racing superbly and was lying in 15th place.
Medallia just took off, landed, and when it landed, the mast came down in 2 pieces. And so that's the end of our 2024 Vendée Globe race.
Having faced over a month of extreme challenges at sea, the skippers were exhausted and on edge, with the journey now taking priority over the race.
Always the horizon, and nothing but the horizon as far as the eye can see. I'm using this time to recharge, and it really lifts my spirits.
Blue sky, turquoise sea, and albatrosses are soaring all around us. Watch them glide, dive into the wind, pick up speed, turn, and then rise again, all without flapping their wings. So majestic, a spectacular sight to see.
It's incredible to think that just over a month ago we left Le Sable d'Olonne, and now we're in Australia. I don't know if the world is really small or if our boats are really fast.
Yoann Richomme accelerated hard after the frustration of the Kerguelen low.
She's going to dig in. Wow, 34 knots at the bottom of the wave there.
The skipper of Paprec Arkea in 3rd place took risks that paid off, with more sail than usual and an impressive pace day and night for 15 days. With this acceleration, he left Thomas Richomme trailing and closed the gap on the leading duo on the long tack south of Australia.
Yoann had a pretty incredible phase in the south, sailing super fast. He was definitely using more sail than me, and I couldn't keep up with his pace, or at least his speed. That was when I gained an understanding of how to handle a boat in these conditions. By the time I reached Tasmania, I had 200-mile lead over Thomas Richomme, and after leaving New Zealand, it was 800. I'm not bragging, but it was pretty amazing to catch up with the others. It was definitely a great boost. Yoann downwind is overtaking me. Well, without my foil, I can't do much. Woohoo! Awesome! So pleased I came this far anyway. Auckland Island.
Just hours ahead of Richomme, Dalin was in a different frame of mind.
There's a place called Disappointment Island. Don't want to end up there.
Yoann Richomme's comeback was partly due to Dalin spending 36 hours south of New Zealand repairing a torn headsail. Dalin did some sewing in tough conditions to quickly repair and reposition the sail before heading into the Pacific.
Done. I just need to hoist it again, and it's good to go.
The leading trio escaped into the Pacific. Behind them, the windless Australian anticyclone tried the skipper's nerves, creating a real bottleneck south of Tasmania. The top 10 was stuck, waiting for the next low-pressure system to get them moving again.
The top 3 are far away in a different weather system, not facing light air. Sadly, looks like we won't see them again for a while. It's frustrating.
Nicholas Lundven, Thomas Richomme and Jeremy Bayou were now together, exasperated by their failure to catch up before Cape Horn and skirting the edge of the ice zone, dodging wind holes, chased by Yannick Besthaven, Paul Meyer, Justin Metro and Boris Herman, the latter now back in the top 10.
Ça bombarde, as the French say.
A front was moving down from the north with strong winds over our race zone. I had a 50 or 60 mile lead over Sam and Clarice then, and it meant I could escape with the low. I'm just so annoyed. I fought for nothing and now there's no wind. I have to go and hoist a sail and I don't even know where I'm going anymore because I was holding on to this effing front. All is lost. I'm furious. It sucks. Clarice and Sam were annoyed that they missed this, but the conditions were really tough. I felt a bit isolated at the time, having increased my lead while Boris began to pull ahead. I was at my lowest, stuck in 30 to 35 knot winds for several days.
Further back, Jean Le Cam was in 18th place after taking an amazing route in a gruelling Indian Ocean. South of Australia, Le Cam led a group of daggerboard boats and foilers in a needle match, driven along by a relentless succession of low systems.
Well, the skippers all thought that the Indian was really hard. They're happy to hear that from an old salt like me, as they don't really know. But the Indian Ocean was, indeed, really tough. It's extremely tense. We've got to hold out for 3 more hours yet. I've got a real problem. The boat, it's just coming apart. There's a crack right along here. Damn, should have worn goggles. I need to be careful and take it easier in the front. It's not my fault, it's Benjamin Ferre's. When he appears, my ego takes over and I need to go faster than him. I can't back down. I felt a wave and I got catapulted out of my bunk. It was just like a car crash. It really hurt my neck, shoulders and head. Early December, we rounded the Cape of Good Hope and I very nearly retired with my rudder problem. About then I said to myself, try your solution and see if you can get to Australia. Well, we've done it. We're in Australia. It's crazy. We're on the other side of the earth.
At the other end of the Southern Ocean, whilst the fleet was scattered along the ice zone, Charlie Dalin and Yoann Richomme engaged in a fierce face-off, a key moment in the battle between the two skippers. The two foilers raced at high speed on a direct tack all the way to Cape Horn. It was high-caliber racing, yet neither of them managed to gain the upper hand.
I thought I was going to outrun him at this point, but the system ahead blocked my path. When I reached Cape Horn, there was no wind, and the breeze came in from behind, closing the gap.
Yeah!
We're there. We rounded Cape Horn. In the lead. That's crazy. We're there. Great to see it in daylight. He snatched Cape Horn from me. I almost had him, but despite that, it was still an incredible moment, and I chose to really enjoy it.
de ce Cap Horn.
35 hours later, in much rougher seas and a much stronger wind, Sébastien Simon rounded Cape Horn in 3rd place.
At one point in the rankings, I stopped even looking at the front runners. I could see their straight line to Cape Horn, and I just thought, why are we having to sail twice as far?
Thomas Richomme made solid progress across the Pacific, defending his 4th place, despite less favourable conditions than the leaders, while the 6 chasers, from Jeremy Bayou to Yannick Bestaven, remained tightly packed and within 200 nautical miles of each other. On day 47, Bestaven had to tackle damage to his steering system and the delamination of Metrocoque's hull. Taking shelter in Ushuaia to repair, he set sail again to complete his circumnavigation out of the race.
I really appreciate everyone's support. Thank you. I've had some low points. The Vendée Globe isn't easy.
Yahoo! We're at Cape Horn, Cabo de Hornos.
The Vendée Globe is also about moments of pure joy, like when the Dutroux, Crémet, Davis trio finally left the Pacific 8 days after the frontrunners, less than 7 hours apart.
This is absolutely amazing. It feels like I've woken from a month's hibernation. This sunshine. It's the first time I've had sun like this. You can't see Cape Horn, but you can guess. A whale accompanied me past the islands this morning. It was the end of the incredible Southern Ocean. I loved it. I didn't always sail well, but even when it was tough, I loved it. It really was amazing.
After rounding Cape Horn, Yoann Richomme led for a week until he and Dalin entered the semi-permanent Cabo Frio front off Brazil. The weather zone is highly unpredictable. Massive Santé Prévoyance's speed in light winds would make all the difference here.
It's difficult. We're going nowhere. We entered the front, but I struggled through the clouds, getting held back, so I couldn't make much progress east. Meanwhile, he came in smoothly from behind and shifted 10 miles eastward. Yoann must be around here somewhere, 30, 40 miles away, roughly. I'm on his tail. I had to reposition myself a little bit to the east. It really felt like the right line, and then I clawed back miles and managed to overtake him. So Massif performed really well under the conditions we faced. Well then, bit by bit, I managed to improve my lead on the Atlantic ascent. There was an element of luck, but I can honestly say that even if I'd managed to get through, it wouldn't have been enough on the ascent, given his potential. It's a tough blow, no doubt, and a bit of public humiliation getting overtaken like that.
Charlie Dalin shot away at the equator with an 8-hour lead. There was no comeback for Yoann Richomme.
Ah, shit! There's an iceberg in my path. Christ, that's scary.
It's a freaking massive iceberg. Well, it feels massive when you know that if you hit anything out here, it's game over.
In the middle of the Pacific, the skippers met with icebergs drifting beyond the ice limit. Loose pack ice was spotted by CLS satellite surveillance, which informs the skippers of any hazards on their route. A few days later, nearing Cape Horn, the skippers were concerned by large lows moving down the Latin American coast. Some raced to pass quickly and avoid the strong gale, others put the brakes on.
I'm scared of entering that low. I don't feel up to it. They say we'll have 40 knots with gusts of up to 55. I had no experience of this part of the world and I had no idea what to expect. So my goal was to finish the Vendée Globe and my mind was made up. I decided to take a break and let it blow over and then see.
Eric Bellion's race ended in the Falklands. After the J2 pin system failed on Altavia Standers 1, he sought shelter to make repairs and then retired before completing his round the world out of the race. The Atlantic ascent was laborious for the top 10, who battled fiercely for the top positions. The racing was intense, with different tactics to sail through this very unpredictable zone.
50 knots of wind, hail and lightning.
For the past week, since Cape Horn, we've been sailing in really tough conditions. I feel like my tactics aren't always spot on, but I think it's hard for everyone.
It's raining. It was nice to get back in the Atlantic and nice to have an opportunity to start gaining some places back. And yeah, I mean, it went a lot better than I could ever imagine to go from 9th in Cape Horn to 4th in off Cabo Frio. You know, it's nice to get back in the match and then you have some positions to fight for.
I don't know what the hell this is, but I'm in deep shit. I saw the wind picking up 30, 40, 45, up to 50 knots. It went on for 30, 45 minutes, maybe as much as an hour, and I thought, Christ, my boat's not going to make it. I've ruined the J2. Shit! I've shredded the J2 on the inside. Damn it! I've never had anything like this. Mentally, it was tough because with the weather they were bunching up from behind and I didn't have the sail I needed.
One by one, the damaged boats got left behind. Jeremy Bayou secured a hard-fought victory for 4th place on returning to the Northern Hemisphere. Worn out by this tedious ascent, the pack suffered significant damage. Paul Meillat and Sam Goodchild, who battled with Jeremy Bayou up until the Azores, stalled. One with a broken forestay, the other with a shattered mainsail.
The forestay swivel hook broke.
Dalin sailed perfectly in the relentless sprint finish. Sailing faster than his rival, the skipper of Massif Santé Prévoyance closed all the openings that Richomme might have contemplated slipping through.
I was nervous right up until the end because 4 years ago I made the mistake of thinking I'd won on the last afternoon at sea. This time I wasn't going to make that mistake, and I only allowed myself to believe it a few hours before the finish. Stand by for Charlie Dalin to finish. Massif Santé Prévoyance crosses the line and wins the 2024-2025 Vendée Globe.
On the 14th of January, Charlie Dalin crossed the finish line as the winner, ending a relentless 8-year pursuit of victory.
I'd never crossed the finish line with the sun rising before. It was simply incredible. By far the most stunning finish line I've ever seen. I was hit by a wave of emotions and joy when I finally crossed the finish line. It was unbelievable, completely crazy. Having Oscar and Perrine come aboard, to finally see them and hug them, and entering that highly exclusive club, Vendée Globe winners.
A masterful performance. His race time was 64 days and 19 hours, beating Armel Leclerc's 2016 record by 9 days.
And that's what I was looking for in this Vendée Globe, the competition, the fight. And it's been a lot like that with Yoann. It's partly due to him that I beat the record by so much, because really and truly we pushed each other to the limit, sailing flat out all around the world at an incredible pace. It feels like I left 2 days ago.
Ce trophée, vainqueur de la 10e édition, Charlie Dalin!
Yoann Richomme arrived 22 hours later in second place in his first Vendée Globe.
The emotion you feel after sailing around the world is incredible. I don't know if I ever really dreamed of it, but I've done it. I'm proud to have led a team from blank page 3 years ago to second place in the Vendée Globe and have a leader looking in his mirror. I just want to share this with everyone and celebrate fittingly.
2 days and 17 hours later, Sébastien Simon returned a hero in third place.
Finishing third was magical. Despite the foil damage, we could replay the race 1,000 times, but ultimately there's not much point. Charlie deserved his win. He demonstrated incredible consistency.
The rest of the top 10 finished 9 days after Dalin, just as a storm hit the Bay of Biscay.
Some fourth places are a defeat. This one feels more like a victory. The pace was really intense in this Vendée Globe. I loved that I was always racing against other skippers. It was great.
Thomas Richomme, one of the favourites at the start, came 7th.
I would have preferred better. That's also hard. When you've won races in the past, you know what it's like to win. You want to relive it. It's a bit of a drug. It's an incredible feeling.
Justine Métraux became the fastest woman to sail around the world on a monohull, the first woman and the first international entrant to finish. The battle between the daggerboard boats was fiercely contested right down to the line. 16 minutes separated 16th place Benjamin Ferret from 17th Tanguy Le Turquet 20 days after Dalin. 65-year-old Jean Le Cam completed his 5th Vendée Globe in 20th place. He had a prime view of the fervour of the crowds celebrating Violette d'Orange's return and her remarkable 90-day solo circumnavigation at just 23 years old. 30th, after 99 days at sea, was Zhu Jingkun, who became the first Chinese sailor to complete a Vendée Globe, and the second with a disability after Damien Séguin, who completed his second Vendée Globe in 15th place. In all, 33 boats returned to Les Sables d'Olonne, celebrated enthusiastically by the people of the Vendée. The 10th Vendée Globe lived up to all its promises, and Charlie Dalin's performance will remain a gold standard. The 11th Vendée Globe will take place in 2028.